buying seminar. And the reality is, thank you for being here. You could be anywhere else, but you came and you chose to be here with us to get this knowledge, to get this information. Danielle, Corinne and I, we are real estate professionals, but we are more in the education business, trying to help folks not only buy a home, but to explain to them why it's really important and why ownership is so important, not for just yourself, but for your family, for your legacy, and all of the attributes and benefits that it creates. Ladies, you want to introduce yourself?
Danielle Burston, of course, of Century 21 Harris Hawkins & Co. I'm Corinne Levin.
Say something.
Mic check, testing, testing. Can you hear us? Are we live? Live and
Can you
direct?
hear us? Let us know.
Coming.
Nice.
Yep. We good.
Good.
Do we need to start over also?
Yeah, start over.
Great. We good?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. We are here at Century 21 Harris & Hawkins, putting on a home buying event seminar for you guys and to give you all of the necessary information as to how you get into a house. The real estate business, buying a house, owning, is so popular right now. It's so attractive. Everybody wants to buy. But the key is, how do I buy? So, myself, Ron Thomas from All Financial Services, Corinne, Danielle, we are your real estate professionals, and we're here to talk to you and tell you about the steps you need to take to get into a house as far as buying. But more importantly, and most important in my opinion, we're going to talk about why should you own a house, right? So it's very easy for us to help you use our expertise, information, and knowledge once you're ready to go as far as buying a house. However, I think that we need to all gather around and spread the word as to why buying a house is most important. You know why? In my opinion, it's attractive, the real estate industry, but when life starts life and things pick up, you forget about, the real estate industry and why you should buy and that you are motivated to buy and you end up doing other things. So we want to talk to you about why it's really important to buy and the collateral benefits that that has. So again, ladies, you want to introduce yourself and tell the people who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it?
Yes, I'm Danielle Burston, and I'm a realtor here at Century 21 Harris Hawkins & Co. I've been a realtor since 2019. And I'm Corinne Levin as well. I work for Century 21 Harris Hawkins & Co. And I've been in the business for 5 years. So any questions you have, we're here and available.
Yep, and again, Ron Thomas, I'm Captain Mortgage on Instagram, Ron Thomas on Facebook. Social media is super important these days to get the information, so please go follow me and follow us on all platforms. My company, All Financial Services, is going to be at All Financial Services on all your social media platforms, allfinancialservices.com, and you can Google it. Reviews are incredible. The knowledge that we give to our community is incredible, and we're committed to getting you to the closing table. So we brought you all guys here today to talk about how to buy a house, but I think most importantly is why do you buy? So we want to get into that on a very high level, and then we can talk about the steps that you need to take to buy a house. Now, you have some really good professionals around you, so how to buy a house is important, but I encourage you to pick up the phone and get that leadership and direction so that you don't miss any steps and then you can avoid the potholes. What we're going to talk to you today about is credit, income, and assets. Okay? When you're going to make a purchase or a transaction, let's say you were going to buy a car. You and I both know that you can buy a car with a pay stub and a job, right? Any car you want. You got a couple dollars, you got a pay stub and a job, you can go to any dealership, you're going to you also have to have your assets, meaning a little bit of money, a little bit of skin in the game. You gotta have all three solid, meeting a minimum qualifying criteria in order to buy a house. It's unlike any other purchase that you've ever made, okay? I'm a big believer in habits and forming the right kind of habits to be financially responsible, to be able to handle a mortgage payment, okay? So if you don't know, normally a mortgage payment and contract is a 30-year deal. So you gotta be really, really comfortable with these habits and your spending habits so that you can budget, you can manage your expenses, and that you can make sure that you pay your mortgage on time, okay? So it's unlike anything that anybody has ever done, and usually it's your most important as well as your biggest purchase. So why do people buy homes today, okay? For a number of different reasons. And let's talk about the why. In my opinion, the best time to buy a house is yesterday. It's always yesterday. And the reason why I say that is not just because I'm in the business, but more importantly because real estate is a very good and solid investment. And what happens is it takes about 3 to 5 years for that investment to become an asset and you to be able to benefit on the return on that investment. All really good investments take time to become a benefit for you in order to realize that investment and to realize that ROI or return on investment. So I always suggest that you get started yesterday because the faster you get started, the sooner you can get to that 3, 4, 5-year period. Well, now you own a home over that 3 to 5. Right? You can tap into that equity, pay off your debt, right?
That's what I was going to say, that you can use a home as leverage.
Yeah, it's super leverage.
Some people use it to purchase
Another home, another home or additional assets to help boost your net worth. So it's a win-win situation all the way around, especially if you look at the bigger picture of things and you're disciplining yourself and you're preparing yourself mentally to be a homeowner and to, like Ron said, get into those habits of building and constantly staying on top of everything. What you invest into your home is essentially what you're investing into yourself, because that is one of your biggest assets.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's say you bought a house in 2020, 2021. We're only 3 years later, and we're noticing an enormous appreciation. So, for example, the last house that I purchased that I'm currently living in right now, I bought that house for $275,000. Okay, Upper Canton, there's a nice area, it's right next to Patterson Park. $275,000. I can promise you that the house across the street a month ago sold and got listed for $360,000. Okay, so that's $90,000, and we're still talking about the city. Yes, we're talking about a decent area in the city, but we're talking about appreciation more than anything.
Yes.
And every house that you buy, for the most part, okay, 90–95% of the time is going to appreciate each year, meaning you're going to make money each year. So when you invest $10–15,000 into a house, you don't lose it. You actually just have some vision, and that number is going to multiply itself for as many years as you own that property. Now, becoming a landlord, buying a rental property, so you live in one, and then a lot of folks have that aspiration to own rental properties, and you should. I don't think that anybody can really rely on Social Security for retirement. I don't know how many people are putting away money into a 401k in order to get that, but in the grand scheme of things, most people want passive income. They want another way to leverage and increase their overall income, because nobody's job is paying enough, let's just be honest, right? Yeah. So in doing so, if you own a home, you're able to tap into that equity. For example, myself in that same situation, I can go get $50,000 and use that for the down payment and closing costs on a rental property. And I don't know any landlords or people that own rental properties that are going to charge you the same amount as the mortgage that they're paying. Right? They're going to put a premium on that, and you can do the same thing, but you can't get to that 3 to 5 years unless you get started today. There's a why there for you. That's a big why. That's why you gotta get started today.
And let's use this, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, let's just use this as an example. Your first house, we all know that it may be a little challenging getting to your first house, and it may not be your dream home. Some people it may be, some people it may not be. But you tap into the market, you're now a homeowner, and you're in your first house. You don't have to stay there forever. It could be a 2 to 5 year plan for you. You have your first asset inside your portfolio. You take that first house, you decide you want to rent it out. You rent it out for more than your mortgage payment, so that's profit already, and that's additional income that can now contribute towards the income that you have for you to be able to get closer to your dream house. Even if your second house is your dream house, but you're getting closer and closer, and you're building yourself up every step of the way to be able to get to where your end game is.
And you know, what Corinne mentioned is so important, because everybody likes immediate gratification and satisfaction. Everybody wants, you know, buy something now, flip it tomorrow. Everybody wants that instant benefit, that instant gratification. But the difference is, when you have a solid investment, it takes time. All real, good, solid investments take time to mature, to appreciate, for you to be able to realize that benefit, okay? Because the reality is, everything else that can produce overnight success is super risky, and you're gonna end up losing money.
And I was sorry, Danielle, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to piggyback off of that too, because I have discussions with people that I work with all the time speaking about investments, and they're like, well, you should invest in this, and you should tap into crypto, you should tap into the stock market, and I'm well versed in all those areas, but I'm like, my safest investment is real estate. Just because I've seen it transpire over the years in so many different ways. I've seen some of the most successful people that you know are successful through real estate.
Yeah.
It's not just a pipe dream, it's not just a spiel that people say, it's reality. And the moment that you become a homeowner, your net worth is starting to build from there. That's how you establish your net worth, through assets and real estate.
Yeah, but the key is, you gotta close your eyes and you gotta have some vision, right? You gotta have some belief, you gotta have some vision, and you gotta have an example ahead of you. Everybody that owns a home, their home is appreciated. And again, another great point is, your first home doesn't have to be your forever home, but it could be that springing
Say,
point.
because a lot of people, that the issue I'm saying is, I don't think I'm ready, and I'm like, well, how do you know that you're not ready? You have to take that first step to even know where to start. If you're not ready until January, I feel like you need to be looking now, because if you need to clear some things up, you need to pay some things off, now is the time to do it. Just take that leap forward. Just take that leap of faith forward and go forward, and you'd be surprised, you know, where you are and what you get pre-approved for.
Exactly, and a lot of people are afraid to initially take
Take
that
that
first
step.
step.
They are. That's what I'm seeing a lot of.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm not ready, and then you keep renewing your lease every year. You're paying their mortgage, where you can be putting that can be set aside to
build
your wealth.
Yeah.
And I always like to tell people, if you're renting, you are paying a mortgage, it's just not
It's just
yours.
not yours.
You know?
And people are afraid of the responsibility, right, that
They
comes
are.
along with home ownership. But it, like Ron spoke about earlier, it really is all about discipline. And if it's yours, you're gonna want to keep it, right? You're gonna want to take care of it. You're gonna want to maintain that mortgage and maintain your property, so that you can use it in those areas to be able to leverage yourself. I mean, I remember when I first got into the real estate, when I first bought my home, I was always afraid. My mother used to always tell me, like, she calls me Car, won't you buy a home? Like, you're paying all this money in taxes, you don't have any tax breaks. Buy a home. And I'm like, Mom, because sometimes I would go I would work contract jobs and work as a consultant. So I was, not a W-2 person, I was like a 1099 person. So I was like, well, I'm not solid. And then I actually spoke to somebody, and they were like, you've been solid. You've been in the same industry. As long as you're in the same industry, you've been ready to be able to purchase a home. And I didn't think I was.
And that's the thing, people aren't educated, and that's why we're
here to be able to
yes.
and give you different scenarios and different type of life experiences that we've all gone through ourselves to be able to get to this point to share with you, so that you can have a better understanding.
Absolutely. Home ownership is for you, and that means everybody. Home ownership is for you. Right now, you know somebody, you're related to somebody, you have a relationship with somebody that is a homeowner and benefiting from being a homeowner and that ownership. Why else would you buy, right? Legacy. If your kids which we work so hard for every single day to provide for, if they see that you grew up, when they grow up, that you're renting, that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna be renters.
Yeah.
But if they know that mom and dad had the conversation about credit, about income, and about assets and how to protect it, it's unfortunate, but our community is behind because these conversations are not and very rarely had.
It is unfortunate because I've actually seen a young lady, she graduated from college, and she wanted to, her first, when she moved out, she wanted to purchase a home, and some of her family members was like, you haven't even rented before. Okay, yeah, that's a big step she's taken, and I think it was, a really good one, that she went on ahead and just did what she felt, and she set herself up.
You set yourself up, there's no equity, there's no appreciation in renting. And if you're gonna fail and for some reason, you miss out on your rent payment, same thing's gonna happen with your mortgage payment. You gotta have somewhere to live, So the first thing I would say is don't worry about the location for your first house. Just get into a property. And the reason why I'm saying that, because when you talk about location, sometimes a up-and-coming location gives you the best opportunity to get into a house with no money out of pocket if that's what you need. But there's a vision there, because you say, hey, listen, I'm on a short-term goal. I'll buy somewhere where they're going to incentivize me and give me a grant to buy just so I can build up the equity over 3 years so that I can now purchase the house that I really want in the county or whatever you want to buy, right? So sometimes you want to leverage free money to buy a property, which is an asset, eventually sell, and then you can use the profit to do what it is that you want to do. But again, when you're buying real estate and you're looking at investing in real estate, it's all about the vision, right? And you also want to have a plan of attack. So that's also the why. We talked about the legacy. We talked about the investment. We talked about how it's so important for you to buy. And then now, most important, let's talk about the emotional attachment. Because when, again, life starts life and you get busy and you're going through your day-to-day with your current job, your families, and your relationships, you forget about it's time to go and put this idea to work and start buying. So the emotional attachment is huge. Why would somebody buy? Right? And all of these things, people buy based on emotion, right? People spend the most money when they have babies. They spend the most money when there's a wedding. They spend the most money when there's an event, a birthday. All of these things spark an emotion. So I encourage you to find your emotional attachment to why home ownership is really important. Because while you put your wants and needs aside, when there's an emotional attachment, like your kids or providing a better environment for them, then it becomes real and you start working on that plan, So I encourage you to have an emotional attachment to that, because that's when we spend money, is when we're emotionally involved, right? You ever have a baby shower for your best friend and you buy the most expensive gift on the registry, right? Because it's an emotional event, right? And that's what home buying needs to be. You need to find that emotional attachment as to why I buy, and it's something that is happening in your household. There's a reason, and then that'll be your end point and your goal, and you'll stick to that. And then when all else fails, just look at the person left or right of you that is a homeowner and talk to them about the benefits that they're receiving, the tax write-offs, right? Because that's a monetary benefit, right? Every time you make a mortgage payment, at the end of the year, you get a tax write-off called the 1098, right? You don't realize that when you're renting. So you don't even realize some of the benefits that there are, right? And the key is I want to be able to leverage this equity. So what equity is, because I want to talk on a high level, but what equity is how much is my house worth? How much is my mortgage balance? And the difference is your equity or your cash money. This is what you can pull from the property and you can use for whatever projects or whatever goals that you have.
Yeah, it's your money.
It's your money. And let me tell you, I purchased my house in 2017, and much like you, when I see what the houses in my neighborhood are going for now, the equity that's in my house, okay.
Yeah, it's insane.
It is.
It's insane.
It really
just because we
is.
came out of that COVID market and we're now in a high demand market.
Yes.
You really are starting to see those assets appreciate sooner than what you would typically see them appreciate. And then we're in a stable, Maryland is kind of like a stable economy. I say I say that to a lot of people because I feel like we have a really good job market here. And we have the federal government here. We have the Army bases here. We have Fort Meade. We have a lot of great businesses here. So I feel like our economy is pretty stable. So purchasing here now, while we're at this point, is like the best time to be able to tap into that market, because I feel like we're only going to grow. Those places that I just named that balances out some of our economy isn't going anywhere. Like, it's going to constantly grow. And Maryland is a great place to be able to have real estate.
As an experienced mortgage broker and lender, I've been in this business since 2008. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Obviously in 2008, 2009, 2010, the market completely collapsed.
Yeah.
There was a housing bubble that bursted. A lot of people were going through foreclosure, delinquency levels. The market was just in shambles. Every 8 to 12 years, you're gonna have 8 or 9 years good, 2 or 3 years bad, okay, in terms of the market. And what happens is the market just corrects itself, right? Maybe there's too much spending, maybe this appreciation is happening too fast, maybe the delinquency level, meaning people are not able to pay on their loans. There's a whole algorithm or list of things that happen where a market will bust. But the reality is it always recovers. Real estate and home buying are a staple in the quote-unquote American dream and economy. It'll always be a flourishing and thriving market. You can bet on
you
that.
just have to be smart about it. I tell people, just because you're pre-approved for $400,000, you don't have to go out here and shop for a house at the top of your budget.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's not wise.
Yeah,
You want to leave yourself room because you never know what may happen.
Yeah, and you don't want to go into a house being house poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started looking at, if you get paid every 2 weeks, I started looking at your net income as a lender, and we're financially responsible. And you may not want to spend more than that 2-week amount that you get, and then the other 2 weeks you can put toward other bills and quality of life and living and things like that. So buying and lending, being responsible is super important because nobody wants to set you up for failure. I want to quickly, before we get into how do I buy, I want to just talk about everything revolving around the why and why some people don't buy or don't want to buy and what they've heard as far as the drawbacks. If we're just having a conversation, we should talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We should talk about it all encompassing because these are some of the concerns that people have internally that they may not want to speak about. So I'm happy to talk about it because I couldn't think of one reason why somebody shouldn't own a home yesterday. Now, there's high interest rates, right? We're coming out of a market in the COVID era where interest rates were high 2s, mid 3s, low 4s, right?
And that's what people they're basing it off of. They're like, well, my sister, her interest rate was this. We're not in a pandemic anymore.
And don't ask your sister, ask your grandmother what her interest rate was. Ask your mom what her interest rate was.
Those interest rates during COVID, they were phenomenal. I'll just say that. They were
all-time
phenomenal.
lows.
All-time lows. But that just wasn't
the norm.
The norm, yeah. That we're out of that, and typically, would you say it's higher than normal, or just we're back where we were?
So it just depends on where you are, right? So in the year 2000, the average interest rate I think was like 7.25. I know in 2007, 2008, when I was in the business, we were probably right around 6.5. So where we are today, around high 6s, I believe that the rates will come down in the 3rd and 4th quarter of 2024 this year. But I don't believe they're going back down to the 3s. I think high 4s, mid 5s are probably where the rates are going to stay flat, and that's what we'll see. But I also think that when it comes down to that COVID era, what people that were benefiting from the low rates didn't tell you is that they were shopping and bidding for homes for months on months on months. And
20 and 30,000 over asking price.
It was a super competitive market.
It was so competitive.
So
it was ridiculous, the stuff that we were seeing.
Yeah.
so
we would have, 50 offers on one house.
Yes.
I've seen houses go.
The agents were like, please, no more offers. Like, the seller wants to cut it off.
Yeah,
it was too overwhelming.
It was very competitive. And you're dating your interest rate. You're not marrying it.
Yeah.
So it's not the commitment that you think it has to be. If rates change, you can change with them. You can refinance. I'll let Ron talk about that. But there are other options to be able to get yourself back to a more comfortable interest rate if the market shifts and we see that change happen.
Yeah, because when you're buying a house and the interest rates are low, it becomes an economics situation and just a very rudimentary explanation, supply and demand, okay?
Yeah.
When rates are low, a lot of people, which are potential home buyers, that's also your demand, goes sky high. And the supply, which is the amount of homes available for these home buyers, goes down because you have more buyers than you have homes available. And as a result, you have multiple people or home buyers bidding on a particular property. And you know what the seller says? Let them bid. So they've got offers and they collected offers and collected offers, and next thing you know, you're paying $50,000, $60,000 more than what the house is worth. But you fall in love with this house, plus you're so tired of bidding and looking at other houses that now you've accepted an offer and you're $50,000 over what the property is worth, okay? So that's a situation where you have to buy because you've been looking and now you finally got an offer accepted, but the offer is accepted at a price that's higher than what the appraisal is. And you're willing to go that route, right? So it happens, it's happened all the time. Now, what's the other worst case scenario is that interest rates are high, but the demand is lower, right? And the supply is higher. So you don't, because the interest rates are high, you have a lot of people on the sidelines waiting for them to come down. But what those people don't realize is, would I rather have a higher interest rate or would I rather buy at a higher price than what it's worth? Of those two things, you want to have a higher interest rate because you can always renegotiate or refinance a higher interest rate. But once you buy too high, you can't renegotiate that price. You got to be there until the home's appreciated in that area or neighborhood and it makes sense for you. So of the two evils, high interest rates or overpaying for a house, you got to go with the high interest rates because you will be able to refinance and you're starting that 3 to 5 year clock, okay? At the end of the day, I want you to focus on payment, not interest rate. Does the payment make sense? Okay, and what am I paying in rent now? What is rent constantly going up to? And what is my mortgage payment going to be? That's what you need to focus on, is the payment. Because if you're buying a house and you're focusing on payment and you love the house, that's where you're going to be. That's where you start your investment. And there shouldn't be a problem as long as the payment is okay.
And that's the same concept that we use when we're purchasing cars, when we're asking for loans, when we're applying for credit cards. Are we that focused in on what those interest rates were? That they're out of this world. Credit card interest rates are out of this world. Car interest rates, not as bad, but you're still focusing on the payment. You're still focusing on what can you afford to pay during that time period if you get this amount of money, if you get approved for this amount of money. So I feel like we should be assessing things the same way and not, I understand interest rates are a driving factor, but it's a driving factor with everything. So the same type of scrutiny that you put on purchasing a home, which can actually get you to another level, versus some of the liabilities that we tend to take on, scrutinize those things the same way that you would scrutinize the interest rates of your home.
As the sales manager at All Financial Services, again, a mortgage brokerage out of Owings Mills, Maryland, I see 60 or 70 loan applications a month. We've got 7 loan officers total, and I have my hands in everything, so I get a chance to see a lot of different loan profiles. I get to see, a number of different credit applications and mortgage applications. And the reason why I bring that up is because you have a lot of folks that are trying to buy, and the important part is to know how to buy. So we talked about why, now we need to talk about how to buy, because there are a lot of folks that are applying, but they need to know, I gotta have my credit in line, my income in line, my assets. So I want you to remember 3 letters, CIA, all right? And we're gonna cover it on a high level. More importantly than anything I say, I encourage you to make sure you contact the professionals, the ones in these seats, the one that you know, in order to direct you, help you avoid any potholes, and get you to the closing table as smooth and as fast as possible. The number one recommendation I can have is make sure that you have the right support system when you're trying to buy a house. Okay? Make sure that the folks that you're working with have experience and have closed a few transactions. Okay, so that's on a high level. That's the first part. Credit. You need a minimum credit qualifying criteria. Okay, in terms of middle score. So when you pull up your phone and you look at your apps and you see Credit Karma and you see these apps on your banking, I want you to ignore those. Okay, those are what's called your Vantage score. That's your Vantage score, and that's only pulling one of the 3 credit bureaus. Okay, it's either pulling Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax. And there are plenty of times where your highest score, maybe TransUnion, says 680, but your middle score might say 610, for a lot of different reasons. Why? Because creditors may report to 2 out of 3 of the bureaus, right? And that history may not go to the third one, so you might have a slightly less score. On a daily basis, I talk to people who tell me what they think their credit score is, and then when I pull a FICO, which is a tri-merge, which is all 3, we have to use the middle of the 3 scores. So if Equifax is 600, TransUnion is 640, and Experian is 700, then your middle score is 640 and your credit score is 640. I'm not really concerned with what Credit Karma says or what the apps on your phone say. That will mislead you. It will misguide you and set you up for failure. You've got to get with a lender and get yourself a pre-approval, because these young ladies, as professional, experienced realtors, will not take you shopping for the house you saw on Zillow until you are pre-approved.
Until you are pre-approved, you
Okay.
definitely have to reach out to
Number
them.
one
Nobody
key is that you have to get pre-approved, because nobody's wasting your time. Why would Danielle show you a house at $450,000 when myself as the lender says you can only get approved for $320,000? It's just an exercise in futility. You're going to waste everybody's time. So these ladies know that you go to them, you say, hey, listen, I'm looking to buy. They're going to send you to me as far as the lender to get you pre-approved so that everybody can shop with confidence. And nobody's just window shopping. Because window shopping in the real estate business is just a waste of time. And ultimately, you can get discouraged because your wants exceed what you can afford. Okay, so that's just the reality. Let's be really dialed in when it comes to how much you can get a pre-approved for. And when you're working with a lender like myself, I'm going to tell you, make sure that you know the max purchase price based on how high you can go, and then we're going to talk about what's a comfortable mortgage payment for you, so that we're not exceeding and there's no payment shock. And then we're going to talk about your interest rate, and then talk about how much you need for closing. So as a lender, as a mortgage broker, I want to tell you that we're a solution-driven company. We work with individuals that have issues with credit, income, and assets, and we find a roadmap. So you come talk to me about buying a house, you're going to leave with either a pre-approval letter, an amount to go shopping, or you're going to leave with a roadmap to home ownership. Hey, these are the steps that you need to take to get you where you need to be. Because I'm such a proponent in home ownership, I'm not just going to say, hey, you can't get pre-approved, come back later. I'm going to say, hey, if you do A, B, and C, we'll get you D, E, and F, and that will be the home ownership. There's a natural process and formula, and it's structured and tailored based on your individual scenario.
And only a lender can give you that information. So we have this perception that, okay, I need to do this first, and I need to do that first, and I need to pay off this, and I need to pay. You don't know. You don't
that's
know.
why I
You
said
don't
that
know what
first
those
step.
requirements
Take that first
are.
step.
Yeah,
You
and
just
so
don't
don't talk
know.
to a lender, because you could be doing something that could be putting you in a completely different bracket versus a lender giving you that roadmap to tell you exactly what you need to do to get to where you want to be. And only a lender can paint that picture for you. I know we think we know everything and we need to have perfect this and perfect that, but sometimes that is not the case. But a lender can tell you exactly what you need.
Normally, when I'm going to talk about credit, I usually throw out a minimum score that you need, right? And I've stopped doing that because I don't want to discourage anybody. Everybody's situation is different. So what I encourage you to do is talk to the professionals, let us pull your credit and tell you where you are in the process. If I go out there and I say you need a minimum score of X, then that might discourage people from applying and seeing where the possibilities are. Because we offer software that helps to credit repair. It may be a small tweak that you need to put yourself in the right position to buy, okay?
But you wouldn't know that until you reach out to a professional.
Exactly. And what I will say is that 2 things I want you to pay attention on your credit. This is 65% of your total credit score, these 2 things. Your payment history and your credit utilization. When I say payment history, it's self-explanatory. Make sure you pay everything on time early, right? Don't let anything go 30-day late. Pay on the due date. Creditors report 10 days after you make your payment, so your balance doesn't update until 10 days after you make your payment. It's crucial that you make on-time payments. Be the type of person that you can be, and you can provide an example for, because I pay on time. If you take out some debt or you ask for a credit card, pay on time. You got to be that kind of person that does what you say you're going to do, right? Otherwise, buying a house is asking somebody, for example, the average house in Maryland 307,000. Now, there's plenty that are way higher than 307. There are plenty that are lower than 307. I'm talking about your average price is 307, probably a little higher right now, but let's just use that as a marker. 307,000. So you're asking somebody literally to take $370,000 out of their pocket to lend you, and you got to do a really good job of convincing them why you've proven to pay it back. So if you're missing payments on $50 credit card payments, if you're missing payments on car loans, would anybody take money out of their pocket to lend you and you just show that you can't pay a lesser debt? The answer is no. So that's why you have to be super responsible with your responsibilities, credit, income, and assets. Take care of your credit. 35% of the credit bureau is your payment history, 30% is your credit utilization. So when I say credit utilization, I'm only talking about your revolving accounts. I'm not talking about your car loan. Your car loan has very little impact on your credit positively. But if you miss a payment, it's going to tank your credit score. I'm talking about revolving accounts. I'm talking about your credit card debt, right, mostly. I'm talking about, your credit union line of credits that are being offered. I'm talking about debt that you can pay off and borrow back without applying again. So revolving open-ended debt. You want that utilization to be 20 to 25% of how much they offer you. So if you have a credit card, they say, hey, you got a $10,000 limit. Every single month, that balance should be under $2,500. It should be under 25%. So don't be afraid to use your credit. Just make sure you have the cash to pay it off to get that balance down below 25%. That will help increase your credit scores. And what you're telling all of the people that view your credit is that you're financially responsible. And if there was an emergency and you didn't have the cash, you can go out and get credit and get yourself bailed out. So it's showing responsibility that you're paying back, you're paying on time, and you're keeping your balances low, creating a line that if you had an emergency, you can go out and get some money. Okay, you can go out and use your credit. So being financially responsible is 65% of your credit score. I won't talk about the other 35% because of all of the credit reports that I see, I'm telling you that the main issue is credit utilization and payment history. And that's the hugest part. And that will be the make or break in you buying a house, right? So make sure we pay our bills on time. Make sure that all of our revolving accounts are lower than 25%, okay? That takes care of the credit part. But it doesn't stop there because you can't just have good credit to buy a house. You got to have income. So we talked about CIA, credit income assets. The income portion comes with you having the same job, being in the same industry for a minimum of 2 years. You're going to want to have 2 years of employment history minimum. All right. Now, I'm 1 year out of college. I've been in college for the last 4 years. I've had a good job for a year. Can I buy? The answer is yes. Because you're just coming out of college, you got 1 year established, so you can buy. That's for the younger folks or folks that are in college that just finished and they want to buy right away because they have good habits, because their parents told them, don't rent, buy as soon as you can. And they put themselves in a position to do so. So, yes, you can. I'm changing industries. You heard Corinne mention, hey, I was 1099, I was contractor, same line of work. So you can change jobs, make sure it's in the same industry. I don't want you going from being a bartender to a lawyer. We might have some issues getting you approved because, again, what we're trying to establish is stability, right? Stability in the same industry. You don't find stability of people that are industry hopping, trying to figure out their route, right? I suggest you get really serious about the industry that you want to be in, and you progress in your career that way. But if you're a medical professional, nurse practitioner, and you're going from one hospital to the next because you're making vertical moves in your career, you can do that as many times as you want in a 2 year period of time. We're still good, right? There's a paper trail for that, and you're showing stability in the industry that you have. Makes a guy like myself in the mortgage industry feel really good about helping you get a loan because I know there's a good chance you'll be able to pay that back. So you're progressing in your career as well. Yes.
So what if you're with your company and so say for instance, like I work in like the mailroom part and I've been there for like a year. So say for instance, if I leave the mailroom and go to a different department, would that still be?
Yeah, that's totally fine because it's the same employer, right?
Oh, okay.
So you have the same employer, you can go through as many departments as you want to work yourself to where you need to be.
Oh.
It's the same employer for 2 years, so that's even better than same industry, different employer. That's even more solid. That shows you're advancing in your career. That shows stability, as well as a willingness to want to be there in that company. We're talking about a 30-year loan, guys. I want to bring it back. We're talking about a 30-year loan. So you got to show some kind of stability and ability to pay this back. And if you're industry hopping, you don't have your feet on the ground as far as your career or industry or workplace, then there's going to be some questions or concerns. But we want a 2-year paper trail of consistency, right? Because it's a 30-year loan. And you might be doing good in 1 year, but if you're not solid in your industry or showing that stability, then it's going to be a little bit difficult to get you a loan, because we want to make sure that you can pay it back, protecting your credit again. In my opinion, credit over cash. You hear cash is king, that sounds great, but cash is only king because that person has credit and they can utilize that credit to save their cash. So again, credit is credit over cash all day long. Why? Because 90% of people don't buy their house cash. They have to go out and get credit. You might put down 10%, but the 90% is coming from credit. You're borrowing money, that's credit. So it's always going to be credit over cash. You got to protect your credit at all costs. Make sure you have a job for 2 years, and then we're going to look at your debt ratio. So again, part of this income piece means your liabilities. How much debt do you have? Are you spending frivolously, or are you financially responsible? Are you opening up department stores? Are you buying, shopping? Every other second you're online, buying things, opening up credit cards, trying to get credit. If you open up a considerable amount of debt, that means you have a ton of liabilities. It's going to affect your buying power. So we have something called debt to income ratio, where we take a look at your total monthly payments, right? Car loan payments, credit card payments, everything that's on credit. And then we look at your gross monthly income. There's a formula there, and as long as you meet a minimum threshold, we will help you get into a house, okay? And then the last part is assets, meaning how much money do you have saved up? Do you have a retirement plan? And or can you get a gift from family, or is there a grant available for you to buy, or a down payment assistance? What I have found is that most people have a decent credit score and they have stability at their job. The problem is the out-of-pocket cost. The problem is the assets to buy. And the reality is this: whether it comes from your bank account or your pocket, most people need around 9% of a purchase price to buy. On a $100,000 house, you're going to need around $9,000 or $10,000 to buy a house. That's your down payment and your closing costs. On a $200,000 house, you're going to need about $18,000, right? That's about 9%. On a $300,000 house, you're going to need $27,000. On a $400,000 house, you need about 36 grand. Now, it doesn't have to come from your pocket, so I don't want to scare you. These numbers could be a bit intimidating, but I'm just giving you an idea. When you put your head around how much can I afford, or how much house do I want, and then you start asking how much am I going to need to buy this, you want to use that 9% because it's a good round number. Now, here's the beauty of it. As a black-owned business, as a company that deals with our community, we have to provide a number of different solutions to all walks of life. And one of the things that we're great at is down payment assistance. So we can help you get between 3.5% to 5% of that $9,000 through a down payment assistance program that we offer that covers just about everybody, right? So now, maybe you only have to come up with 4% because I'm gonna get you 5%. Right? Or, so now, you only need about 4%. And then you decide, hey, here's a decent area in the city. They're offering a couple of grant programs. All I got to do is take a class. Now I can get that 4%. And all you have to come out of pocket with is your appraisal and maybe $1,000.
Yeah, you can stack the program. So there's a lot of options.
To take it a step further, if you got some really good real estate agents and I get you 4%, they're able to go out and negotiate a deal with the seller and say, hey, listen, I've got a great buyer. We're going to close in 25 days. Can you get them 4% as incentive to buying their house?
Yeah.
Depending on how long the house has been on the market, depending on how motivated the seller is, and depending on how much activity there is, that seller may say, you know what, I'm motivated, I want to buy, I'm ready to get to my next house, I'm gonna give your buyer this other 4% to buy. So you get 5% from the lender, you get 4% from the seller, and now you can get into a house for $1,000 or less. And this is real stuff. This happens every single day.
It does. It's real. You know, you have people, like you said, the programs, you can stack them. I had a client, she was prepared at that closing. We get to the closing table, she gets a check back. So that was a win-win for us because we stacked the programs and then the down payment assistance, closing costs, and she was very pleased. She was very pleased.
So does it depend on like the area that you also buy?
It does.
It does.
But it doesn't have to be, right? Because there's a lot of different solutions for down payment. The area that you buy in could afford a grant that helps you get where you need to be, right? Or we have our own programs that will allow down payment assistance for that specific scenario. Listen, lenders are smart. The only way that banks and mortgage companies make money is to lend money because they want to make interest on that. So they're going to find solutions for your problem. I know you got a good job. I know you got sound credit or at least a minimum credit score, but most people have a problem with that asset bringing money to closing. So if I'm a mortgage lender, which I am, I'm going to find programs to help you fill that void. And then you're going to make that money in interest. So there's an incentive to help in all different areas. The reason why I'm so happy that you guys are here getting this information is because if you leave with one thing, just know that home ownership is possible despite the fact that what people have told you. And I can show you better than I can tell you by just getting started. Most people just have that fear of getting started because they've heard one thing or another. You know who I want to work with? I want to work with the person that looks to the left and looks to the right and says, this coworker is a homeowner. He's not better than me. My family member just bought a house. You're from the same place, from the same block that I'm from. You're not better than me. Let's go figure this thing out because home ownership is that important. Again, for your legacy. It's important for your kids. It's important for your retirement. It's important for you to be able to leverage that asset and use it to make your quality of life better. That's what everybody's using home ownership for. The people that you know and respect that have a good income and that live a good quality of life, you may not know it, but they own a piece of real estate or they're homeowners and they're benefiting from that. And what do? We sit back and talk about it. I'm gonna. But you gotta have your credit, income, and assets in line. Nobody's just giving away a house. Nobody's just gonna give it to you like a car. When you drive a car off a lot, it depreciates right away. Okay? When you buy a house, you have started the process of being a better version of yourself financially, emotionally, family-wise, you name it. So, on a high level, credit, income, and assets, you need all three. And we can provide the assets. You got to have a job to live these days. Most people do, right? And then the credit part we can work on. So it's attainable for everybody, 100%. And it's a lot easier, in my opinion, than what people think. This comes from somebody that looks at 50, 60, 70 applications. We close 40 to 50 mortgage programs a month. Every single month, there's 40 or 50 new homeowners, and most of them look like us.
So, me and my son wanted to do this together, like buy a house outright together.
You should.
So even like with that, it can be something, if I'm not here, it'll still be something that he can call home.
Yeah.
So do we both go through the same
Steps.
You guys would apply together.
Okay.
There may be times where you're still going to live together, and maybe one of your credit profiles is better than the other. You both can still go on the title and get the ownership of that because you're both going to make the mortgage payment, but maybe the loan is just in your name. And then you're having that support from him to help pay the bill, and you qualify for yourself. There is plenty of mother-son situations where you can buy together and increase your buying power. Both of you guys are liable for the loan. Both of you guys are on title. It's something for you to leave for him. 3 years go by, you tap into that equity, use it for your own forever home. He's still in this asset. Now you've created two. Two assets. For one, because you've used the equity in this property. And you don't have to sell the house to get the equity. That's what I'm for. You know, there's a loan for that so you can tap into and leverage it. It's all about leverage. When you're buying a house, you're creating leverage for yourself. Okay, and that's what's most important. I want to open it up for any other questions. You know, I feel like this is the right time to ask the questions that you're scared to ask or that you want to know or that you don't have the resources to ask. I consider myself somebody that can help answer those, and I'm always going to keep it real with you, because home ownership isn't for everybody. It isn't for the person that's missing a car payment every other month. It's not for that person. You've got to put yourself in a position where you're establishing the right habits. And I can tell you, some of those folks that are missing car payments and credit card payments, they're also going on vacation. So sometimes you have to sacrifice your lifestyle. Sometimes you have to say no to certain things because you're putting that time and commitment into what's going to benefit you and your family long term. Those pictures from the vacation shouldn't supersede you missing a payment on a bill or two, right? You shouldn't be financing vacations when the goal is home ownership. We see people do it all the time. And it's not like I'm knocking you, I'm just saying, if you're serious about increasing your quality of life, if you're tired of complaining to your coworkers about certain things, then ownership is where it starts. And it's not going to pay you back right away. In fact, it's going to deplete some of your savings right away.
And you'd be surprised what 6 months of discipline can do for you. You'd be surprised at how far you can, how much you can accomplish and how far you can take yourself to the next level if you hone in and discipline yourself to be able to achieve
because if you have to take that roadmap, if you're not ready, then taking that roadmap will prepare you in the long run when you are in home.
And if you don't have that example at home of a good saver, a good spender, somebody with good habits, then you be that example for your family.
Exactly. Set the
You
bar.
be that example for that family.
Break generational curses.
Yes.
And that really is just about mindset, right? Start talking about credit with your family. Start learning about credit for the sake of your family so that you can tell your kid when you go to college and you get that first credit card offer, let's be smart about this spending, that this is not free money. And you're setting yourself up for either success or for failure when you don't take care of your credit.
And some people out here are a little naive to thinking that you don't need it. You do. This is the way of the world. You do. And if you are cash heavy and you do have a lot of money, you still want to be able to keep that, right? You don't want to have to utilize your money for everything. You want to be able to use your credit to leverage yourself so that you can continuously have that type of cash flow.
Yep, and if you're one of those people that have damaged their credit and you've had to experience what that's done for you, share that story with somebody so you can scare them so that they don't mess up their credit, okay? And this world is generated based on borrowing money, if you can borrow money. The way that the job situation in the world is set up is that you will not get paid enough to pay cash for the things that are important.
Yeah.
So you have to take care of your credit because it's called leverage. If you take nothing else from this conversation, it's about leverage and creating leverage for yourself, okay? And that's what ownership will do for you. It's a guarantee, guys. It's a guarantee. You buy a house today, you're going to be able to leverage that property and get some money out of it in order to do what it is that works for you to enhance your quality of life. So,
Ron, one of the questions I have is touring new construction, and my realtor is trying to push me to utilize their financing, but I'm unsure. Do you guys finance new construction?
absolutely, absolutely. You do not have to use the builder's finance person in order to buy that new construction. And they're not going to tell you that, right? What they're going to do is incentivize you $20,000.
They're going to make the number high.
But the truth is this, okay? When they say I'm going to incentivize you to use our financial person because I'm going to give you an extra $20,000 in upgrades on this house, what they're really doing is just inflating the labor cost and they're allowing you to use their finance. But what you're sacrificing is a higher interest rate. They're going to give you a higher interest rate than what the market determines because that $20,000 incentive seems like such a nice thing for this property that you're building. When in reality, if you shop around and you get a better interest rate, you're going to be able to supersede that $20,000 because the rate that they're giving you is higher. So over the next 3 years, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to get $20,000 in upgrades for free, you use the right lender And you're gonna save more than that because you'll be paying less in interest over the course of your mortgage, which again is a 30-year mortgage.
And that lender works for that builder.
Yeah.
So they're working together.
Yeah.
You choose your own lender, they're working for you. They're working towards being able to make sure that you're getting put in the best
For
possible.
your best interest.
Yes.
So Austin, in that scenario, listen, I'll be honest, I suggest you take a loan estimate or get a quote from that lender of the builder. But I also suggest you get a second opinion. I also suggest you're able to look at things and compare apples to apples. Because when two lenders compete, or two car companies compete, when two salespeople compete, the buyer's always gonna win. And I'll tell you that firsthand. That's how confident and comfortable I am with some of the things that we have, the programs that we offer. We have a competitive edge because we're for helping people buy houses. And our success is just strictly a byproduct of helping people. You know, it's very easy for us.
So when you first start looking to buy your home, what are the best areas to start to look in? Like go to the county, the city?
It depends.
That's a personal preference.
That's a person, it's definitely
Oh,
a personal preference.
Yeah.
And it depends on your financial situation as well and how much you qualify here. Because this is a question for Ron too, but sometimes in Baltimore, specifically taxes. Taxes are a huge factor
Yes.
in whether or not you can afford that home.
That's
So
what
some
I was
areas the
about to
taxes
say.
may be a little less than it is in the city. Baltimore City has the highest tax
Yeah.
rate in Maryland, so we have to think about some of the affordability changes from area.
Yeah, and you know, when it comes to location, a lot of people have this cringe when it comes to the city, like they don't want to buy in the city. But I'm telling you, Baltimore is a gold mine. And all outside investors, I'm talking about China, I'm talking about Middle Eastern, I'm talking about outside states and cities, they're looking at Baltimore as a gold mine. And they're not, and it's because they may or may not know certain neighborhoods, but they don't care. They're looking at the investment today because they know it's not going to pay them back today. But it will pay them back in 3 to 5 years, right? If you really want to get specific with it, the city has plans and zones to show where they're going to be spending money, whether it be putting in new shopping stores or centers, these staple stores like your grocery stores, your Whole Foods, or your staple, like all of these are what they call staple stores. And you know if they're putting these stores in certain areas, it's up and coming, right? So you can always get with the mayor's office in the city and the planning and see where money's being spent, see where the infrastructure is being built, and you can base your purchase around that because you know in 3 to 5 years, that'll be up and coming, it will be appreciating, and now you have a plan to sell. I encourage people that your first home is not your forever home, and it shouldn't be. It should be a springboard to your second or third home. Nobody that's in their dream home, for the most part, right, that's their first home, right? But we'll sacrifice and
So
spend
keep
money
that in
on
mind
that.
when you're shopping for your home as well.
It doesn't have to be. I'm not telling you to go to the hood and buy the worst house on the block. But I'm telling you to have an open mind about where you're buying and why you're buying. Because you may not be buying today because it's your forever home. You might be buying today to set yourself up for 3 or 4 years from now, right? Because you buy today in the city, maybe you just had a son or a kid, and now 5 years later, it's time to move to the county for the school system. You set yourself up to be able to afford that house in the county. A lot of people have county taste, but, city money. It's just the reality. They want to buy, but when they realize the prices have increased and, they're not necessarily outside their price range, that might be the time to find the right location in the city where you feel safe, of course, where you feel like it's up and coming, and use those few years to set up your equity position, and now you tap into that equity, you buy your second home, the home that you love, and now you rent this out to somebody who's just like you 5 years ago, or somebody who is not in a position to buy, but they're renting. And now you're making, and you're not going to charge them what your mortgage payment is. Now you've got passive income that you set up. And then you can gauge, hey, I like being a landlord. I want to do this again. So a couple of years go by, a year go by, you tap into some more equity to put down on your next home. And now you might find a position for yourself where, hey, I want to be an investor too. Me personally, my goal is I don't want to rely on retirement or 401k or Social Security. I want 20 doors, 20 real estate, 20 properties that are going to passively pay me my monthly retirement. You know, and it's still work too. So don't let me sit here and tell you that buying a house and being a landlord is just turnkey easy. You know, you buy the house, you collect the rent. There's some work that's involved
Yeah,
with
some
anything
people
that
would
makes
rather
sense.
not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it is, it's a lot of work and responsibility. And then and with the city as well, sometimes you may find stackable programs, more programs in the city.
It definitely is a lot
Incentivizing
in the city
neighborhoods.
more than in the county, the state program.
So the idea is that it's possible. The idea is that we're encouraging you to get started. The more people that become homeowners, the faster the word spread. And we need all of our people to know that ownership should be the most important thing that you do in your adult life, for all of the reasons that we mentioned, but more importantly, financially, for the leverage that it creates. And we gotta have some vision. We can't be thinking about today and tomorrow. We gotta be thinking about a couple of years from now. How do I set myself up? Instagram, social media will have you believing that everything is overnight satisfaction, overnight gratification. But you and I know that anything that's worth it takes some time. Any investment that's meaningful, that's real, you know, that has a good return and little risk takes some time.
Yeah, I had a question for you.
Mhm.
Real quick. I know some people that have student loans and they were wondering if it was, I heard of a program before where they can add that into the loan or pay it off or something.
Yeah, there's a loan called Smart Buy. It's offered by Mellon Mortgage Program.
Okay.
You know, it's one of those things that becomes attractive and helps people pay off their student loan debt. I will tell you that it is an option, but you know, it's not one of those things that I see often. You have to be the type of person that has a certain amount of student debt, minimum 50,000, and there's some other criteria that go into play. So yes, that is possible, but for the most part, student loans, I see a lot in there all the time, but the interest rates are relatively low. You know, the payments that you make, you can negotiate. I don't see that being the biggest deterrent. So
Gotcha.
if you do have some student loans and they are a deterrent, make sure you talk to us because we have plenty of ways to work through that and work around it. But the interest rates on student loans are relatively low. I know a lot of people have high balances, but I would encourage you with those interest rates, just continue to pay those over the course of time. And if it makes sense and you qualify for the program, to eliminate your student debt, it is possible. Just being honest, I don't see it all the time.
Okay.
So I don't like to over.
I was wondering, what is the average time handles in the house?
From start to finish, if you first you got to get pre-approved. So some people are pre-approved in 24 hours. We do it right away in less than 24 hours. Some people it takes time to get pre-approved. However, from the time you are pre-approved to buy, there's a lag time between when you find the house that you love and a contract is offered. So it goes apply for a loan, get pre-approved for a loan, start shopping for a house, have an offer accepted on a house by the seller, and then from that day period, it's 30 days or less. And we can close in like 16, 17 days, but usually a contract is a 30-day process, just to allow for all of the behind-the-scenes things to happen, like the appraisal to happen, the title to happen, your home inspection to happen, and then also the processing and getting the loan approved by our underwriting team. So from the time you're under contract to the end, I would say 30 days or less, you'll be in a house.
If they're using grants, can it be 30 days or less?
It
Or
can
it has
be.
to be at least 45?
It can be, but I would tell somebody using a grant for 45 days because the difference is 2 weeks. And I, as a professional, would rather tell you a worst case scenario and then deliver sooner than that. So I was like, listen, let's do it in 45 days,
Right.
but we can be done in 30 because every situation is different. And when you're using down payment assistance, you're going to a third party to get some assistance and it could slow up the time frame. But if I tell you the loan's going to take 30 days and it takes 45, then it might ruin our relationship because now you've set up movers, now you've got plans to move in, and you've setting up other things that will go with, you know, how you need to move, and then I'm late 15 days. But if I tell you 45 days and then I deliver in 30, now I look like a hero. So my goal is never to overpromise and underdeliver. 30 days is pretty standard, and we can do it less than that. Down payment assistance, I would say 45 days or less, but it just depends how many down payment assistance programs or grants that you're stacking.
Or what the criteria is.
But ultimately, there's going to be some time that's needed because you're borrowing some money, and it's going to be the biggest purchase that you've ever made. So it takes a little bit of time from start to finish. But again, there is a process to get to the point where you are under contract.
I have a question. So some people might decide, hey, I don't want to get a home inspection.
Well,
What do you
that
think
is,
of that?
that's totally your right. We don't need a home inspection in order to close on a house. That is more for the buyer's concerns. That's more for the buyer's agent's concerns to know that anything that they don't see with the naked eye on the house has been looked at. So I never suggest I never suggest you not doing a home inspection.
Right.
Some people will waive it because it's $400, $500 out of pocket.
But it's the best $400 or $500 investment that you can put into just to make sure that you're securing something, especially if this is a home that you're going to occupy, right? If it's an investment, okay, I may understand because you're going in and you're setting your expectations to be able to have to do some work in there anyway. But if this is somewhere that you plan on living and you want to secure, you want to pass it down through generations, you definitely want to opt in and set aside those funds. Those are funds you can prepare for, right? So we can kind of go into talking about what type of preparedness you need to have in order to start the process of looking for a home, and what are the next steps after you find your home. What comes after that?
Yeah, so out-of-pocket costs, very simple. Never waive your initial home inspection. There's two inspections that we're gonna need, or we need one of two inspections, but again, the first one should be mandatory. I suggest everybody spend the money to have their home inspected, because some people throw lipstick on a pig, right? And you don't know what's behind the walls. You don't know what the roof is like. You don't know what the basement's like. You don't know if there's ever been a leak. You don't know if there's mold. You can't see some of these things. So the home inspection is super important. So you're gonna need $400 or $500 out of pocket for a home inspection all the time, and you're gonna need about $500 for an appraisal.
And then you're gonna need your earnest money deposit.
Yeah, and an earnest money deposit, worst case scenario, usually 1% of the purchase price. If you're buying a $400,000 house, your earnest money deposit is probably going to be around $4,000. The earnest money deposit shows the seller that you're serious. Here's a deposit to put down on the house that I'm going to ultimately buy and close on in 30 days. You're not going to lose that $4,000. It's going to take off of your total cash to close at the end. But it is a deposit. It says I'm serious. I got some money to put up front, and I want you to know that I'm really serious about buying this house. And most contracts have some kind of earnest money deposit associated with it. So that would be your other out-of-pocket cost. There are plenty of times where I see a $300,000 house with an earnest money deposit of $100,000. Of $1,000, excuse me. There's times when that happens. So it all depends on the seller, the motivated seller, and how your real estate agent negotiates the earnest money deposit. But unequivocally, you gotta have $500 for the appraisal, $500 for your inspection, and then your earnest money deposit, probably somewhere around 1% of the purchase price. You have those funds available, and most of the time your contract will be accepted and you're set up. And you don't have to worry about any other out-of-pocket expenses until we get to closing. Now, the other thing that I would say, because there's a small footnote that you should know, is if you have $20,000 in grants because you qualified for them, or down payment assistance, then your realtors, Danielle and Corinne, will say to the seller, like, my client is not coming out of pocket with a 1% or $4,000 or $5,000, because majority of their closing costs and down payment is coming from grants. You're still gonna get your money, but it doesn't need to come from my buyer. So here's a $500 or $1,000 earnest money deposit, just so that we have a deposit there, but my client's only coming out of pocket with $1,000. So we're not gonna give you 1%. And then the seller's gonna be fine, because they know they're gonna be made whole at the end, and they know where the money's coming from at the end. So you don't need your own money to buy a house. The key is you get with the right professionals, and we'll navigate you through the home buying process and answer any questions that you have, because it's important that let you know what's going on as it goes on.
And as you prepare yourself to go through this process, you want to, make sure you still preparing a nice safety nest, right?
Always have
a safety
yeah,
nest.
always have some money saved up. And that's
Yes.
part of good spending habits, is good saving habits. One of the most important thing I've heard is, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you can save. Okay. So again, Ron Thomas, All Financial Services. I am your mortgage broker, your mortgage professional. I'm the captain. I'm going to lead you to the closing table. We're going to make sure that we avoid any potholes. Make sure you have quality real estate agents, because I can't do anything for you until you hire a quality real estate agent. Corinne, Danielle, take us home.
All right, so again, I'm Danielle with Century 21 Harris Hawkins & Co. We are here for your real estate needs, Corinne and I. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will lead you to the captain.
Absolutely. Century 21 Harris Hawkins & Co. My handle on Instagram is Corinne Ariel. Don't hesitate to reach out. Slide in my DMs for real estate needs. Facebook, Corinne Lemon. And we're here to service you in any way we possibly can.
Make sure you take care of your credit, make sure you take care of your income, make sure you take care of your assets, and remember, the best time to buy and own a house is yesterday.